Well, that's really confusing. I tried charging this thing this morning. 5 minutes, and it said it was charged. Okay. Can you hear me now? All right. Well, I'm suffering from short-timer syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is, but since I'm leaving at the end of the month, I kind of feel like I've already left. But, and I'm kind of befuddled and anxious and all of that good stuff that comes with doing some major thing. So today's text is Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. This is, of course, found as a part of the greatest sermon ever given, the Sermon on the Mount, preached by the Lord himself. The theme of that great sermon was how people of the kingdom of heaven are to live. Jesus was saying, those who are my disciples should affect the world in a positive way by the way in which they live and by the things that they do. So y'all...
Don't go southern on us.
Oh yeah, I'm going southern. Y'all are the salt of the earth. What do y'all think of that? Salt was so important that it was sometimes used for money. In fact, the Roman soldiers of Jesus' day were at times paid with it. In fact, our word salary comes from the Latin word salarium, which referred to the payments to the soldiers with salt. So when we tell somebody they've been at the salt mine working, that's sort of true. We still use the phrase, whether we realize what it means or not, that somebody is worth their salt. We don't think much about salt because we can get as much as we want today, cheaply. It's just a little bottle with holes in the top of the table. But when you're completely dependent on salt to preserve your food, and when it also is so valuable that it's used in the place of money, you'd have a completely different perspective on salt, y'all. Well, in today's text, our Lord is calling us the salt of the earth. Today, of course, we have refrigeration, unless you're in England. They have Bosch or something like that. It don't work all that good from what I heard. We take this for granted. Of course, on my trip, I have to rely on the refrigeration of the stores from which I purchase what I eat, because I have no refrigeration. And I will be largely eating out of Dollar Trees. Mainly because I've found that homeless people get a lot of their food from dollar stores. I did not know that. And I've been actually eating out of Dollar Tree for the past 3 weeks. Anyway, that bacon this morning was cooked on my stove I'll be taking with me to heat up my food. Christianity has in fact had a profound positive effect on the world. The most dramatic impact on the world is that it has attached new value to human life. Prior to Christianity, infanticide and abandonment of children was a very common practice. Hospitals, as we now know them, begin through the influence of Christianity. The Red Cross was started by an evangelical Christian man. Although almost every one of the first 123 colleges and universities in the United States has Christian roots. The same could be said of orphanages, adopting agencies, humane treatment of the insane. The list goes on and on. We've had a great impact in this country. Perhaps part of the problem is that we have been led these days to believe that our religious faith is a purely personal thing. That is, that we should keep it to ourselves. Well, I agree that our faith is personal in that it requires a personal decision on our part as to whether or not we are going to believe in Jesus. Jesus taught that we are not to keep our faith to ourselves. John says, and this is the condemnation, that light has come into the world and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone practicing evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed. But he who does the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be clearly seen, that they have been done in the name of God. Our lives should be lives that reflect something different from what the world has, from what the world says. Because, quite simply, we have something that the world does not have, and that is Jesus. Mm-hmm. The call can be summarized this way: if you're in the darkness, come to the light. If you are saved, make a difference in your world. So anyway, I decided to ride my bicycle to Mexico, to bring to light this problem of hunger amongst the homeless. If we can raise some money and distribute some food cards and put signs on the bike for the ride, then I feel that something good has been accomplished in the world. You can follow my ride on my personal Facebook page, which I'll put a link to on the church page. Oh man, did I go a page ahead here? Like I said, I'm a bit out of sorts. Well, I'll go ahead and read this page too, and we'll just see how it goes. Whenever we as Christians are introduced into a setting, whether it is social or work-related, the unbelievers should see evidence of the difference that Jesus Christ has made in our lives. They should be able to look at us and accuse us of following Christ. Either our lives are counting for good and for God, or they are making an impact for evil and the enemy. The way we live, the things we say, the attitudes we entertain, the lifestyle that we adopt, are continually producing either positive or negative results in society. And when you tell people that you're a Christian, they watch you to see what you do. And they listen to the words that you use every day. We don't want our church to become a warehouse for salt. Because we have that saltiness that we get from Christ, we could store it all up in here. We could be all this goodness in here. But you know, like power, like in a battery, it doesn't really do any good to store all that power in that battery unless you put it to work. And the same is true of our Christian lives and the gifts and the power that we receive from Christ. If we don't put that to use, it really doesn't do any good for anybody.
Amen.
Worship team of one.